Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 2, Chapter 9, 24. So this is very much at the beginning of the Bhagavatam. You have in Canto 1 essentially setting the stage. So Canto 1 is first of all the explanation of, you have Sutta Goswami, who is the narrator of the story of how Shukadeva Goswami told the Bhagavatam to Parikshit. Yeah, so you have the story in the story. And then afterwards, Narada, he comes to Vyasa because Vyasa is depressed a little bit because he's written about all the knowledge, but he hasn't tasted or revealed this, how bhakti actually feels like. So if you want, bhakti is the sweetest feeling inside of you, waiting to be awakened after many lives of hard work actually towards it. And hopefully in this life we can all partake of that nectar which is sleeping inside of you. So after having received that knowledge from Narada, Vyasa, he starts writing the Bhagavatam, and as said many times, the Bhagavatam is thus considered the ultimate of the scripture. Yeah. And just as a side note, so in my opinion, if you want to properly engage in Hinduism, you have to see always the role of the guru, the munis and the sages. So let's say, even when we say that traditionally Hinduism is based on the Vedas, then where do these Vedas come from? So we consider them scripture, but originally they have been received, let's say, as a Sanskrit potency from the consciousness and given them on as mantra. And that happened very often orally, like for thousands or even longer time. And at some point, maybe 2,000-3,000 years ago, then somebody started to write down the Rig Veda, and since then we say today that this is scripture. So in order to properly engage in Hinduism, as I want to say, in my opinion, you have to see always the role of the guru. So as we see today, Guruji, he is taking knowledge which has always been there, which is accessible in Hindu Shastra, but he makes it accessible. Yeah? So let's say, in comparison to Ramanuja or other great acharyas in history, it was today is not so important to you or those devotees who will join Bhakti Marga in the future if you have given necessary scriptural commentaries on something. But it's much more about, is the heart touched? Do you feel that this is your place, the Hari Bhakta Sampradaya? So like this, if you want to properly engage in Hinduism, see the munis and the gurus as those who keep it alive. Yeah, that's why Hinduism is so flexible. And like this, approaching the Bhagavatam, it also happened like this, that when Narada, he came to Vyasa to give him this enlightenment about actually how it feels like. How does it feel like when we look at these paintings here and you feel how to be? Yeah, you get a little feeling of it, of Canto 10 maybe, if you travel to Vrindavan. How does it feel like? Yeah. How does it feel like maybe when you stop smoking or watch YouTube all day? Then you get a feeling of what is Canto 6 of Rishabhadeva's teaching of a little bit of restraint and sacrifice. Yeah, so it's about feeling, because bhakti is a feeling. So like this, the stage is set in Canto 1, and in Canto 2, then the story actually starts with the introduction to cosmology of the Bhagavatam, which is, I would say, of today, where we like a combination of science and fiction. We like to see those movies, like Star Wars and many others. So, but actually, this is science. So if you read Bhagavatam, it's not fiction. So if you read and study actually Bhagavatam, just like we study Bhagavad Gita, this is hard facts. Why? Not only because it's written in the book there, and everyone says that Bhagavat is important, but because it has been confirmed by bona fide gurus over time. Yeah, so these were not just any people, but these has been properly placed sages, having been acknowledged by their lineages, and they have said. So they have said that Bhagavat is important. Guruji says that Bhagavat is important because there's this active knowledge inside. So in this second canto, this verse is actually from, which is about the cosmology. Yeah, and let me just read it first. Srajami tapasyayadam grisami tapasa punaha vibarni tapasa vishvam viramyam discharam tapaha. So in every line here you find the word tapas. Yeah? Srajami tapas sevedam grisami tapasa munaha vibarni tapasa vishvam viryam discharam tapaha. Yeah? So the word tapas. And this is what I want to talk about. So this verse means actually, I create this cosmos by such penance. I maintain it by the same energy, and I withdraw it by all the same energy. Therefore, the core potency is penance alone. So who's talking here? Who can know, who can talk about the order of the cosmos? It's Narayana himself talking here. And the second canto, it starts by how Narayana is the ultimate form, this Purushottama that we talk about, all the planets, all the galaxy, all the innumerable, countless manifestations of the Lord put together into some organism, this is what we call the Purushottama. No? Is inconceivable, yet he has a form. And when this supreme person wants to create, he said, I want to emanate something from me. I want to emanate out this creation. So the first one who appeared from, let's say, this supreme being was the Mahavishnu. Yeah, so this is one, when we see here Mahavishnu lying on this snake in the Milky Ocean. This is the first emanation, and this is actually also where the Purusha Suktam takes place. Yeah, so this is from there on, actually, a manifestation happens. And then from Mahavishnu's navel, Brahmaji comes. Yeah, so we call Brahmaji the creator, but actually Narayana, he created everything. And then Brahmaji, he comes from a lotus, from the navel, sits on the lotus, and he is charged with populating the design which Narayana has pre-given. And when Brahmaji, he sits on that lotus, he doesn't know where he is from. He doesn't know where he is originating from. So he's sitting in the lotus, and he looks down, but it's just darkness. And he hears from the darkness 2 syllables. And this is the command of Narayana. So Brahmaji, we can say, who is the first of the living entities, he hears the command, and this is what this verse says, he follows the command. Yeah? So when we are here in this lineage of surrendering to God, then we say, Brahmaji, he set a very nice first example, and he listened to the 2 syllables, and Narayana, he echoed tapa, tapa, yeah, which means penance. Yeah? And how it says in this verse, it means that the core of every energy is penance. In other words, sacrifice. Yeah? So you learn in Bhagavad Gita that sacrifice is to put it in the mind. Yeah? Sacrifice, tapa or yajna, you put it in the mind. Yeah? So maybe one day you find, I want to turn vegetarian. At that point, it may be a sacrifice in the mind. Because in the mind, it's maybe very difficult, because from that point on, we have to start telling us a different story. That's why it's so hard for many wannabe men in this world to stop eating meat, because there's so much connected in their minds, the story of, I'm a hunter, I'm strong, I will survive, I don't need God. Yeah, so this is a very archaic, manly image in the mind. So if you hang on to that image, the story that you tell yourself every day of who you are, then if that person would be challenged to say by the wife, say, come on, honey, we try one day vegetarian now. Then that story that the man tells himself will be challenged to say, ooh, then maybe I'm not a hunter anymore. Then maybe I'm not strong anymore. So of course this is, I don't want to say the word, but it's beep. So it is not appropriate. That this is the story, this is not contemporary anymore. It doesn't fit anymore, right? Whereas today, when you want to be a man, for example, concerning food, then you better start protecting the environment. Yeah, so you follow the command of the time, which, for example, turn vegetarian. So all of this is penance. And penance goes on and on and on. You know, when you become vegetarian, one day you become vegan. If you want to continue, maybe you further reduce. Maybe you start at Makriya, you reduce the amount of sleep that you need. Maybe one day you feel, no, I don't even need sex anymore. Not even the thought of sex anymore. I become brahmachari. Yeah. And the story goes on until we have arrived by penance at that feeling inside that is to be satisfied by the self alone. Yeah, so this is also a purpose of Bhagavad Gita. It guides you by penance to arrive at that feeling inside of you that is everything you need. And Radha, she's the embodiment of that. So if you want to give a name, a personification to that feeling of bhakti inside of you, of devotion, and it's Radha. Yeah. This is inside of us. And once you have attained it, you don't need anything else. Somebody can come to you, try to sell or offer you a cheap solution. Yeah? Like, I want to give you glory and fame. You say, no, thank you. It's okay. Yeah? Or you can be rich and you have a wonderful house and a wonderful family. And you say, maybe that's good. And maybe that's my dharma. But do I need it? Maybe not. No, thank you. Because I have found that sweet feeling of Radha inside of me. So we see that penance is very much connected to grace. And if we talk about tapa, then we talk immediately at the same go of grace, of kripa. Yeah. So Guruji says, without effort, no grace. So if you feel you don't have enough grace, if you feel you haven't moved according to how you wish to move, then you haven't done enough tapa. Then you haven't done enough effort. Yeah? And I believe, and I would reiterate in every satsang, I believe in Guruji's mercy. I believe not at all that he is a hard God to achieve. I believe that he sets the bar, but I believe that his grace is readily available. Even if you make just a small effort with sincerity, Guruji's grace, his kripa will flow and you will feel. Yeah? And this is the grace that will carry you. Yeah? So even if you want to make a step of 1% on the great distance that you want to travel to God, then he will give the rest of 99% by his grace. Yeah? But the 1% has to be through tapaha. According to a Brahmaji, he followed the command of the Lord. Yeah? So we see that even the Lord himself, in the core of Bhagavatam, he says himself, follow the command. Yeah? And following the command is itself tapa. Yeah? So Brahmaji, after this, he meditated 1,000 years, which according to his time quantity, this was a meditation. Afterwards he started with his task to populate creation. So what instruction has Guruji given you? Let us follow it. And I mean, sitting here and talking for satsang is a practice for those who sit here and learn to talk. It's also a practice for those who sit and listen. And sometimes I don't want to talk. It's because how many satsangs do we need more in order to follow? How many satsangs do you need? How many reminders more? Not even like resident satsangs, Guruji satsangs. How many satsangs more do we need? The repetition of that, follow the command. No, I mean, I think it cannot be so difficult, Jai Gurudev.